Welcome. Good. Okay. Welcome to the Wednesday, May 7th, 2025 Garrison Board of Education regular workshop meeting and public budget hearing. All right. Next, would you call the roll, please?
Jocelyn Epistone.
Here.
Eric Arnold.
Here.
Jennifer Harrington Wilson.
Here.
Dan Jasnow.
Here.
Peter Lesser.
Here.
Ben Schott.
Here.
Sarah Torn.
Here. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Next up, I have a accept agenda changes. Do I have any recommended changes? I will note we have added a couple of things today. I apologize for the late additions. One was board president's remarks, just so I have space for it. And then the Westchester Putnam School Board Association information. Any other recommended changes? Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Yep. All right, that brings me to board president's remarks. Thursday, May 1st was National School Principals Day. And on that Thursday, our wonderful principal, Allison Amig's office was filled with flowers, balloons, messages, and gratitude from staff, students, parents. It really was a testament to the school culture she's created, her leadership here, and the trust we have in her. So I wanted to wish her a happy School Principals Day. Thank you. I also want to note that this week is Teacher Appreciation Week. Love the teachers, of course, we know in our building they do so much more than teach. They are the inspiration behind everything we do here. And I wanted to say thank you on behalf of the Board of Education for believing in our students' potential. We really appreciate everything you do. It's both seen and unseen. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great week and that you find lots of fun ways to celebrate you all. Today is also National School Nurses Day. May's a big celebration. It's exams and celebration. So we want to really thank Nurse Melissa. She is so caring to our students. She is calm, she leads with common sense, and so compassionate. We really, I think, are so fortunate to have her in our community. So a huge thank you to Nurse Melissa on National School Nurses Day. And then a couple of housekeeping items. The Westchester Putnam, Southern Westchester Putnam School Board Association has their annual meeting on Monday, June 2nd. It is an in-person meeting and a dinner, and it's a great way to network, meet other school boards. Everyone's invited. I'm planning to attend, Greg's planning to attend, but this is open to anyone who's interested. So they're actually going to be honoring a long-term member, Scott Levy, who is writing a book about school boards and why they matter so much. So it's going to be a really actually interesting meeting. He's been the past president of the organization. He's been a really wonderful advocate for school boards. So let Dusty know if you wish to register for that. Another reminder that Haldane High School Awards Night is Monday, May 19th at 7 p.m. If you wish to attend, please let Dusty know. We've all been invited. Also, I just want to touch base on our summer retreat. Peter sent some great ideas on how to shape this. If anyone else has any thoughts they want to contribute, please let me know. We're working now to build out an agenda that will address some of these ideas. The main thing I'd like to get at is when you all would like to meet. I think what we're going to look at is probably a Saturday over the summer would be ideal. This is going to be a long enough agenda that we're really going to need a full day. We're not looking to do a repeat of, how school boards work or any of that, meeting with lawyers. We're really going to delve into sort of what we do here and looking at the next gen standards and learning more about that. And maybe we will, if everybody's supportive of the idea, read a book together, or at least have some books that you have the option to read and that we can discuss. You can listen to. So please don't forget, send me your dates, thinking summer weekends. If we can't find a common weekend, we will push into the fall, but let's try and do this sort of before school starts. Okay, that was all I have for president's remarks. If you have any questions? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the public hearing. So this is our public hearing for the 2025-2026 adopted school budget. I'm gonna open the public hearing, and then I'm going to invite Joe and Greg to give us an overview of the adopted budget. After that, I will take questions from the board, and following that, I will take questions from the public. This is an evening where we can have a back and forth and answer questions, should anyone have any on the budget, and then we'll close the public hearing. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Chair Impact.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and to the Board of Education community that is with us present, and those that are going to watch this a little later on when we post it. This is our budget hearing for the 25-26 school district budget. Again, I'm not going to reiterate everything that I've said the past 4 or 5 times, but again, we're going to stay, this budget stays within the allowable tax levy. We want to provide our community and stakeholders with a budget that properly maintains the district's infrastructure, maintains our staffing, and moves our district forward. Again, what's new in this budget? So the community has a good understanding of what we're adding to our already amazing programs, is bringing in subject matter experts in STEAM, working directly with students, working with their staff to really infuse some of that next generation STEAM instruction. We are funding our Summer Scholars Program. This is really important. In the past, Summer Scholars was funded by Recovery Act money, grant money. That money is gone. There is no more money for that. So we want to fund that Summer Scholars Program in our operating budget. We also really want to leverage our outdoor education space with a new environmental educator and push our environmental education forward. And part of that is to develop an immersive outdoor education space where we can spend more time out there, where students and staff can sustain long periods of time and actually create a learning environment out there. This budget advances that cause by allocating funds towards an actual design with architects. We also want to expand our hands-on curriculum and material for our STEAM program. All of that is in our budget. We are going to continue our pre-K through 8 environmental ed, all of the wonderful special area programs, our extracurricular programs, our professional development. We really believe the reason we are making gains as a school district is because we have the best staff, and we need to provide them with the best professional learning opportunities so they can hone their skills, develop new and exciting instructional practices to work with our students. And lastly, as we've been sharing with our community, we have 3 wonderful high schools that our students attend, and they're doing remarkably well there. We prepared them well, and these schools are taking great care of those, of our students, and we want to continue those options. This budget allows us to do that. Very briefly, the only thing we're going to do on staffing, the headcount is exactly the same. We're going to add 2 FTE to our teaching positions, and really moving from BOCES consultants for our band and our music and having them be on-staff people. This will create stability and ensure that our music program and our band program continues to move forward for years to come. So none of that has changed. So we really are excited about what this budget does, and in a fiscally responsible way. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe to go briefly through the program.
Right. A lot of these slides haven't changed, so we'll go through and skip over those and cover some of the things that we have to do as a part of the budget hearing. So this program does support the SPO as well as the school lunch program, partnering with HUD. We are the lowest tax rate in the region. It's so the same. Our tax cap is primarily driven by the capital exclusion. That's really the main part of the growth of the tax levy. Our tax amount is actually under the cap. The cap from the formula would be 5.7. We are 3.58. Those are the median values. The median values for Phillipstown would go up at around $300 per year, and for Putnam Valley, $172 per year. This is a look at our revenue. The 1.4 million is to be used from undesignated fund balance, and then 100,000 from the debt service reserve. The state aid numbers are all estimates because the state hasn't adopted the budget yet. Same. Let's look at the draft budget. And this is the budget in 3 components. The majority of the budget is program, and 10.7 million of program, 2.0 million of capital, and 1.8 of administration. So transfers to capital is a big part of the budget, and by doing the capital projects that are in the budget this way, it'll save $235,000 of interest. We won't need any interest payments to do this work. So we're doing roofing improvements in both the shingle roof as well as some of the foam roofs, front stairs, sidewalks, and retaining walls. So the tax levy is 245,000 under the limit. Only needs a simple majority. If the proposed budget is defeated, the board can hold a re-vote on June 17th with the same or another version of the budget, or the board can adopt a contingent budget. Contingent budget requires 0% tax increase. It increases the budget gap by $453,000, which is the growth in the tax levy. We would need an additional $261,000 of undesignated fund balance to support the contingent budget, and it would require $193,000 in additional cuts to balance the budget. And it would be required to be under the administrative cap, which is the administrative cap is the administrative component of the budget divided by the administrative plus the program component. So this is what would be cut with a contingent budget. Funding for all the field trips. Eliminates funding for all subject matter experts for STEAM and environmental education, and all contracted services for professional development and travel. Any professional development will have to be determined. It eliminates the summer scholar program, the SPO, and all equipment purchases except for equipment to maintain special ed or the building. So the budget proposition is the first one on the ballot, $14,680,000 be appropriated to support the school for the year. And the second proposition is to allow for a 5-year contract with Putnam Valley to educate our high school students. So what's left on the list for the calendar, absentee ballot votes. The deadline is next week. And then you have a deadline to file your absentee ballot in person the 19th. And on May 20th is the vote. Any questions?
Did you bring a fancy talk to show us? Or is
Well,
that for later?
If there were a bunch of new members of the public, I would show a piece of the roof again.
Did you just go get that today for this presentation?
No, I had it from a previous one, so,
I'll be happy to share.
the roofing projects are needed because, when we have any kind of a wind event, this is what comes off the roof, and the roof is beyond its useful life. It's 2 layers of asphalt shingles on the original 1920 section of the roof. So that all has to be torn off, remove the asbestos-containing waterproofing layer, and, rebuild with new. So that's part of the work.
Any other questions for, all right, well, thank you so much for that synopsis.
Yep.
We're gonna keep going then. And we can refer people to come to your office to see the roof pieces if they want, if they still have questions about what exactly.
Yeah, they can just look up, or they can look here.
And when it was raining this week, we'd be happy to show them where the water was coming in.
I think you could do it tomorrow, it sounds like too, because we're in next week. We're gonna have a lot of opportunities to see it rain and still. Just make an appointment
Yes.
when it's raining. All right, we're gonna move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm going to be brief, and I'm going to echo some of your remarks. You did it so well, it's hard to follow that. But I want to let, number one, our teachers know how much they're appreciated. I think Sarah said it very well. I also want to thank the PTA for hosting a wonderful breakfast for our staff on Tuesday morning. It was incredibly nice of them, and I think they brought enough that it was breakfast for lunch too for our teachers too. So we really appreciate all the work that they've done. National School Nurses Day is today, and we want to thank Nurse Melissa. She does it all: deliver pizza, put Band-Aids on boo-boos, and help with dismissal. She's a remarkable person. And I also want to reiterate how appreciative we are of Principal Emmons' leadership, care, commitment, the outreach, the pouring in of students creating cards for her, flowers in her office, pales in comparison to what she gives us every day. So I just wanted to acknowledge those important people in our schools. They're the engine that makes this thing run. I want to also report back out to the community that we had our math assessments and there were no issues whatsoever, technically. Smooth sailing. So next, we hope that there will be no technical issues in the future, but we want to report that our students fared very well in terms of getting on and producing, their results. A couple reminders: May 13th and 14th is the New York State Science Exam for grade 5. Joe already talked about the last day to register with the district clerk. To vote is May 15th. GSEP is holding their spring thaw on May 16th, so I know that has been sent out in Principal Emmons' weekly updates. Our budget vote, annual budget vote, and Board of Elections is the 20th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in our gymnasium. And lastly, and you should see a lot of information coming out fast and furious now, May 30th is our Youth Climate Summit. We're so excited. The planning is underway. And I can't wait for this, for our students, for our community to see the wonderful things that our students are going to produce. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for our superintendent's report? Okay. We'll move on to board communications and presentations. This evening we have a mental health and SEL presentation. Turn over to you, Greg, and your chief.
Some negative presentations, this is great. So I want to thank Allison for presenting with me this evening, for Dave Roper, school psychologist extraordinaire. There is a National School Psychologist Day, and he will get flowers and cards and all the different things. The funny thing is, I hired Dave in Maycap, and when I came here to see that he is our school psychologist, I couldn't have been more happy and more sure about what a great district I was coming to. that Mr. Roper is here. So we're going to briefly talk about 10 minutes about our social emotional programming. It's really hard to distill this down to its basic elements, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it this evening, I promise. So those that know me know I like agendas. We're going to do some activities with the board. So this is an interactive presentation, so get ready for it. We're going to do a mood meter activity with you. We're going to talk a little bit about our Garrison SEL programming and how complex and interwoven it is. We're going to talk about there's community-based supports in Putnam County. We're going to overview for the board and the community what those are. We're going to talk about the impact of our SL programming on our school. And we're going to then go back into another activity for the board on a dialectical behavioral therapy activity. And we're going to talk about our future efforts and then how our Vogue interacts with their SEL program and how we assess that. It's really important. And then we're going to give an opportunity for the board to ask any questions of the team. So I'm going to speak very little in this, and I'm going to kick it over to Mr. Roper.
So I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but this is the mood meter that's adopted from the Buller program. And just to kind of give you an outline right here, I'd like you to be able to consider how you're feeling at the moment. And we have 4 quadrants here. So the red is high energy but unpleasant feelings. The yellow is high energy but pleasant feelings. The blue is low energy, unpleasant feelings, and the green is low energy but pleasant. So I'd like you to consider just what your energy level is. Take a moment, and there may be a Post-it there if you feel like you would like to jot it down, or just take a moment to reflect on how you're feeling on your energy level. Are you feeling fun, tired, and is it a pleasant feeling or an unpleasant feeling? And the idea being that there are no real good and bad emotions. There are just feelings, and there may be some that feel better than others. So take a moment to think about which quadrant you might be in, and if you can attach any particular feelings to that, feeling words. So, do I collect next? Does everybody have one in mind? Yeah. This? Yeah. All right. So, in terms of our SEL initiatives here, social emotional learning, I think we have a very comprehensive program. It is very multi-layered. I'm actually very proud of it. I'm proud to be part of such a great school that does so many different types of programs. They're very differentiated for all students, and I'll talk a little bit more about them in detail. So as I said, the Ruler program, that's our school-wide framework for social emotional learning. Ruler stands for recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, and regulating. It goes across all grade levels, and it is kind of the basis of where we want kids to start to be able to recognize how they're feeling, start thinking about self-awareness, self-monitoring, and we believe that if you can name it, you can tame it. First, you have to be able to speak and have the vocabulary to be able to express what you might be experiencing. Move This World, we're using primarily for the younger grades. They're very simple, short videos, but there's a lot of movement involved. They're fun. Kids are very engaged in it. It's a great program. Everyday Speech provides a lot of interactive activities. There's mindfulness lessons that start every lesson, and the kids, I mean, it's amazing what the kids are doing. As young as first grade, they're sitting on the rug, meditating. It's pretty impressive. But they're all very interactive. As you can see, there's a lot of overlap between self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, their relationship skills, decision-making. So they're woven together, and we use them to complement each other and interact with each other. And then finally, we have dialectical behavior therapy, and this is for primarily the older grades, although we do start to expose kids to the vocabulary of younger ages, depending on the students. The core aspects of dialectical behavior therapy include mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, and interpersonal relationships. We do these in small groups, but also a big part of DBT is individual counseling, as well as coaching, so real-time crisis management, how to be able to apply skills in real time. And we're gonna do an activity in a little while to be able to talk about DBT. More detail.
So in addition to the programs that we use here at GUFS and the supports that we have in place, we also leverage our local community supports and resources. So we always have a running list of mental health supports, especially as things happen, in society. We want to get some information out to families in real time as things happen, to our teachers. So there's lots of resources that we leverage and dispense. We have the Phillipstown Behavioral Hub that we often use as well, locally right here over in Cold Spring. Single point of access, also known as SPOA, is our community resources through Putnam County. A lot of case management, streamlined access to an array of mental health services. Putnam County Cove Care, we have several students who might have need access. That's over in Carmel. I've been there myself supporting students, and we have Chris DiDiego has personal relationships too with Putnam County Cove Care. Oftentimes, again, making referrals. And then what's new and exciting, which we absolutely love, is Putnam County Mobile Crisis Unit, and this is new. And this is a Monday through Friday support where all ages can access in the event that there's a crisis here. In your home, you can call, they'll assess the situation and send in-person support or virtual support. So we're really thrilled to add that to our local community supports. And now I'm going to turn it over to, I think it's still me. Oh, it is still me. Okay. So how does this look and feel in the building? So you guys all know me, I think, really well. One of my biggest commitments is the culture and the climate of this building. When I came here, it was something that I said, like, we need to band together as a team of teachers and community so that we can give our best selves to our students. It was a big priority of mine and still is. But what this looks like in real time, the hustle and bustle of a moving environment with kids in it, is checking in on students routinely. Me as a principal checking in with the teachers, making sure the staff is good and ready to go and they have the necessary tools for the day. Making sure our guidance counselors and our school psychologists have what they need because they're in the weeds with the teachers, with the students. So it's constantly checking in with students and with staff. Making sure that we are having kids identify how they're feeling and be able to articulate their emotions and help to normalize those conversations. Having students work individually, small groups, whole group. Sometimes they come to me in lunch bunches. They go to Nurse Melissa often for lunch bunch as well. We're always in Dave's office, always in Mrs. DiDiego's office. And then also looking at the instruction and how we instruct students on a daily basis, how we interact even with materials and how that connects to SEL and how students are feeling about themselves as a student, as an academic student as well. So that's how it looks in a nutshell, and how it should feel for kids. It should feel validating. It should feel, proactive. Certainly not reactive. We try very hard to not be reactive, but to get ahead of it. Supportive and non-judgmental, making sure that every student feels like when they walk into the walls of this school that there's a sense of belonging, that they feel like I belong in this building, I belong in this classroom, I'm seen and I'm heard and I'm validated. And that there's trust and respect among peers, trust and respect among teachers, the staff, colleagues, administration, and that we're modeling that continuously for our kids, for the students. The students are watching every move we make. They hear us, they see whether or not we're at baseline, if our emotions are getting the best of us. So we work very hard to make sure that we're protecting the students from, our emotions that we might be having on a day-to-day basis. That's part of our SEL program as well, taking care of each other. And now I'm going to pass it to Dave for a little activity.
So one of the core aspects of DBT is mindfulness, and there's a lot of research now around mindfulness having dramatic effects on our ability to be able to self-regulate. We live in such a fast-paced world where we are never really, we struggle to be conscious of our present moment. And so one thing that, as you can see in the picture, we're a very busy world, but, I often ask kids, who's happier in this picture, the person or the dog? And, the dog has, is right there in the moment, enjoying the sunny day. And so one piece of being mindful is to be present in the moment, but it's also without judgment, and to not judge yourself for having judgments. So what I'd like everybody to do is to be able to stand up for a moment, if you wouldn't mind. And it's going to take 1 minute, and I'd like you to be able to just focus on your breath. 1 minute. And when you think 1 minute has elapsed, I want you to sit down. Now, try not to look at the time. If you can close your eyes, that would be better, but if you're comfortable. But everybody might have a different idea of what exactly 1 minute feels like. And it can feel sometimes longer when you are in a mindful moment. So I'd like you to be able to start now. One moment, in 1 minute, please. Thank you. Now, one thing we talk about is observations. And with all our busy lives and how busy we all are being here and the dedication to the district, we all have so many things that we're juggling in our lives. 1 minute, I don't know, I can feel in silence like that, you feel like such a long time. And it's only 1 minute, and we think of 1 minute going by so fast. But it really can feel much longer if we're really just being present to where we are and what we're feeling. I don't know if anybody would like to share. Did anybody have any observations? Did it feel like a long time? Did anybody have any judgments about when they sat down versus looking to someone next to them, whether or not they should sit down? Did anybody experience that?
Absolutely. I totally missed the mark. I would have been sitting if I
Right. And I've done this in the classroom with students, and sometimes kids sit down like 20 seconds in, and then others are there for like 3 minutes. I'm trying to see how long they can go. And it's very interesting how many can feel different to all of us depending on how fast our thoughts are moving. And so it's trying to bring some awareness to how we're feeling and how time, plays a role in that when we feel constantly having to move forward with the next step of our day. So one big concept in being mindful is getting to a place called wise mind. And wise mind is a balance between balancing our emotions and facts. Emotions are not always based in logic. They're emotions, and they're not always rational. So we have to find a balance between the two. And in order to get to a wise mind, we need to follow 3 steps. And it's to observe, describe, and participate. And as I just asked you to be able to do is just to observe how you feel, right? To be able to recognize it, to identify it, to, as we said before with ruler, to be able to that's the first step, to understand it. And then it's to describe it, to express it, to be able to have the right language, to be able to explain it to somebody. And then to be able to participate in something without judging yourself and to fully immerse yourself in the moment without second guessing yourself. So we have a little activity now that I'd like you to be able to, we have, they're out there. Oh, everybody's got a Hershey Kiss. Okay, so the first thing, this is a fun way to be able to kind of practice those 3 skills. So the first thing is I'd like you to be able to look at the Hershey Kiss and to just take notice of what it looks like. Take notice if there's any variations than, Hershey Kiss that you might have seen before? Is it maybe loafing or is it crinkled? I ask kids to tell me the shape of it, to take notice that it's reflected, it's aluminum, right? To be able to notice it. Then I'd like to be able to, you guys can open it. So if you hold it in your hand and open it up, let's all be quiet while we do it. And we all listen to it, the crinkling, right? So I may ask kids to be able to describe what they hear. They can notice all of our senses. What does it feel like in your hand? What's the weight feel like? Is it smooth? Is it rough? These are descriptive terms. And then we get to a place where we're ready to eat it. And, I often will shape it by saying we also have an urge to be able to eat it, right away. And I don't know if you're all familiar with the marshmallow test, another very common experiment where it's about resisting this impulse to be able to eat something. So I'll ask kids, so you can all put it in your mouth and eat it, but I don't want you to be able to bite it right away. I want you to just let it sit there for a moment and try to resist the urge to bite it. I mean, how many of us have gotten like a lifesaver before, like immediately we bite it, so. And then I'd ask them to be able to describe, what does it taste like? Without saying whether it's good or not. What is it? What's the texture like? What does it feel like? And this can be a very slow process to be able to really enjoy the taste. And for what it's worth, mindful eating is actually a wonderful practice to be able to actually enjoy the moment. These senses that we can experience throughout the day, even when they're unpleasant, can sometimes be very therapeutic, to be able to process and be present in the moment, to experience the full range of emotion. Does everybody still have it in their mouth, or did everybody bite it?
Still working on it.
Still working on it. But there's this urge to bite it, right? And that's how we start to be able to teach what the word urge is. Because once we can teach that there's a feeling or a thought, and then there's an urge, we can then start to teach how to be able to take action or resist that urge. And that's self-monitoring. That's checking yourself, checking your impulses. And even though you may still make decisions that you're not happy with, once we start to recognize that we made a decision or we had an urge to do something, we can then start to be able to inhibit it. And those are wise choices when we consider all of those different factors.
You may now bite the first.
Yes,
So we never rest where we are, and these are real activities that we do with kids, and there's reasons for it. The research shows that if you teach kids these skills, they'll be more present, they'll better well-being, but there's also a correlation between these types of skills and student achievement. So students are more present, able to regulate their emotions. You have to teach them these skills, label their emotions. They're going to perform better in school, and the research is pretty clear. So we wanted to give the board a couple activities that we do with kids, and so that you have a good sense of we do a lot more than that, but we're not eating Hershey Kisses all day with the kids, right? But those are the kinds of activities, real activities that we do with students, and it builds upon itself. But we have other things that we want to do to enhance our SEL programming. You've heard me talk about it before. We're looking at a violence prevention program, particularly with our middle schools. It may be the Sandy Hook Promise, Say Something program or something like that. We are also looking to pilot a middle school health education program called Less Awkward. It's not a less awkward program, it's actually the title of the health program that we're looking at, and Mr. Beckley and Nurse Melissa are collaborating on that. We're looking at the option of possibly having an SEL course in the middle school. We spent a lot more time just because of the demands, pushing in the classrooms. In the elementary school, we have a lot more flexibility, but if we could teach these skills even at a higher level to our middle school, that would be great. And we're looking at our civic seal of readiness aligned to our SEL programs and our environmental education programs. So those are our future efforts moving forward. And I'm going to kick it back over to Alice.
And As you know, I put this slide in everything we do because this is our guiding compass, and everything we do goes through the vision of a graduate lens. And SEL tightly aligns, with every single skill and disposition, but more closely with integrity and empathy. That's like the natural entry point. But we recently, I'm excited to share some things with you because back in January, we started teaching these more explicitly to the students, all the way at our little 4-year-olds throughout our middle school. And this is just a snapshot of how kids are self-assessing. So in January, I pulled grade bands together and we taught them explicitly what this means in terms of just the skills and dispositions, and we showed them the symbol of the vision of a graduate. We did a deeper dive into each skill and each disposition. And then I passed the baton to Mrs. DiDiego, our school guidance counselor, and she did push-in lessons with the students, developed with the teachers these self-assessment tools and goal-setting opportunities for kids. And as you can see, we have an example from our pre-K. I can show empathy by snuggling with my mommy after she got hurt, or I can show empathy by being sad when my brother got in trouble, teaching kids explicitly what does it mean to be an empathetic person. And then here's an example from 5th grade. This student chose to focus on empathy, and again, you can see her bullet points. What are some things that she can do to show kindness this week? And ask people how they're doing. And just hold the door. Something as simple as holding the door for somebody just shows that you are present in the moment and helpful, and being respectful. So we're really excited about this, and then the teachers used these to show at the conferences with the parents. So it was a really nice way for students to get really involved in the BOG and start to unpack it a little bit further and set some goals around social emotional learning. And now I'm going to end it with Dave.
Well, we just bring it back to the mood meter, and sometimes after we do a lesson in the classroom, we bring it back to the mood meter and just say, has anybody's feelings changed? Since our activities and since you have new information, do you feel any different? I don't know if anyone does, if anybody would like to share, if they still feel the same. But that's the idea, is we want to see that those feelings can change, and they can change in a very short succession. And that's okay. And it's okay to be on different sides of the spectrum, at any given point as well. Do you have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to share?
I was a 2 -1 when we started, and now I'm a 3 -1. It was a pleasant presentation. So thank you.
I think I just went up and pleasant.
And you can think about a teacher's impact on the class. How they present a lesson will impact the mood of the class. So it's not just about telling the kids a skill, it's about, as I think you said, modeling how we want people to feel in our classrooms so that you feel more comfortable and you feel more pleasant, because we know that is more indicative of learning. So thank you for.
Yeah, how do the teachers use this? Can they use it in a ad hoc, so if they're walking, a middle school teacher walks in and says, the room is crazy today, right? There's too much energy, we need to turn it down. Like, do they use techniques then, is that what you kind of advise them to do?
We try to empower the teachers to be able to use this at those opportune times. We're coming in from recess. I think that's a very common one, particularly at the primary grades, where you think they would be tired, but no, they're actually still very activated. And so how to be able to exercise some of these tools to be able to just take a moment to be able to reflect, okay, I do have a lot of energy right now. What can I do to be able to move myself into a position for learning? And so to your point, yeah, I think that there are some times where I think they would be most useful. I think
Every classroom has a mood meter, and we encourage our staff to use that. If you see a kid that's dysregulated, to just, and they are part of our lessons. Our teachers are in there when Krista is teaching or Dave is teaching. So we implore them to use those techniques, use those strategies. We can always look at how we can use them better in the future, but our teachers are well equipped to bring out a mood meter. All right, everybody, if you're high energy, stand over here. If you're low energy, stand over here, and bring everybody back down or do a simple exercise, maybe not with a Hershey Kiss, but do a mindfulness activity where they can recenter and maybe focus on breath. So they all have the skills to do it, but like SEL is such an amorphous thing that it's an art and a science.
And the mood meter has been ingrained in, I think, students so much that I told you the story that my Christmas cards, like, are often there's a mood meter that's built into the card. I've gotten many that, a picture of me and then the mood meter in the background, it's just, I think they associate that with me. And, I have one in my office and I'll have kids come in and put a Post-it on where they're feeling. So it's kind of ingrained into the culture. And to your point too about like, when a kid says that they have an unpleasant feeling, because that happens. If you're doing it class-wide, you have a kid who says, I'm bored, or I'm tired, and I think it opens up this vulnerable conversation where other kids can share how they're really feeling, and you can get this range that I think it kind of permeates the daily functioning in the classroom and the culture.
Couple questions. So obviously we're doing a lot, we've got a lot of these programs, Ruler, the ones you went through. I wonder if there are others that you are watching or that you see other districts doing that you're aware of, that, time and money were no resource that you think would be something you'd want to do here, or that you feel like would fill a gap. Not without denigrating anything that we're doing currently, but are there other things out there, maybe new developments that you think we should be?
I'm always open to new strategies and tools, and I have a series of different little programs that are small. These are some big research-based programs. From other districts that I've worked in, I say these are some of the most comprehensive. And in other districts too, they may run one program. I find it very useful that we have a comprehensive set, because one class might need one particular strategy or tool, and I think we diversify and differentiate based on the needs of that room. But there are other resources that we incorporate.
You brought everyday speech here, because that was one that you were not using, and you were really like, we have to try this. We started piloting parts of everyday speech, and like you could speak more to that, but we were really using, we all learn this world of TPT, and then, he was like, this is a program that I think that, would align nicely and complement. So you did great.
Yeah, I think all these programs are aligned with the Castle frameworks,
Yeah.
which is really, really important, which is the gold standard of SEL program. And the other thing is it takes a long time. I think you guys brought Ruler in 2019,
That was,
18,
prior
19.
to me, yeah.
So if you think about how long it took to ingrain it into the kind of fabric of what we do, those things take a long time. We are constantly looking at the research. I would say we probably have to self-assess, like, are there more efficient ways or better ways we can integrate more of this into our daily instruction? I think that's the next frontier, but they're all research-based, they're all, aligned with the Castle framework. If something new and exciting came out, as everything in education, we want to be on the cutting edge, but we never want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because how long it took and how much investment we need in these programs. If the research comes out like it has in other areas where it's no longer effective and the research said, then we'll have that discussion.
Yeah. Great. Then another question, obviously the SPO, SRO has been a big topic of debate on the board and in the community this year. I wonder how you guys think about it, maybe drawing on experience in other districts where they had an SRO, SPO. What is the interplay between that role and this SEL programming, maintaining the culture that you talked about, Allison? How should we be, assuming this moves forward, how should we be thinking about that? How should we be starting to, consider what those two roles are?
The one thing I would say is, I want whoever comes into our building to understand the Castle frameworks, to understand the language that we use, and to kind of understand how we interact with our students, whether it be nonverbal cues or tonality, whether it be how we greet kids, how we talk about emotions. So if a kid is dysregulated, you go into middle school, they're out from recess, they're doing all this stuff. How is that person, whoever it's in the building, whether it's a therapist, whether it's an SPO, we want to make sure we have an ability to work with them, particularly with our mental health providers like Dave, and say, here's how we interact with them, here's our mood meter. Maybe going through some of these activities and doing some training with them like we would any new staff member. So that's how I see it, and I think that's a really important good point you make. This person has to be, they don't have to be the expert, they don't have to be mood meter roper over here, right? But they have to understand how we interact with our students and what the expectation is. And we're gonna rely very heavily on Krista and Dave to kind of, if we have a new teacher coming in at some point, or a new aide, or even an SPL, I think the expectation is the same.
I'd just like to say a point about connections. Like, I think the core of SEL is about knowing yourself and knowing the students. And I think, whoever that might be in that case, to know those students, that there is some type of trusting relationship there, because that's what those skills are really going to be, helpful for us to be able to actually use them and have them be received.
But and also understanding the boundaries. Knowing they're not the counselor, and that they are the SPO, and that really being explicit about that, what they can do, who they go and seek for help, whether it's me or whether it's, Dave and Krista, but really being explicit about that too. I think it's fair.
Thank you.
I have a question, and it alludes to the boundaries that you just talked about. Can you speak a little bit to what we do as a school district versus what we don't? At what point do we refer out, and is there a line sort of that becomes, well, that's counseling that needs an actual therapist, and how that process works? Are we the link to get the family services that they need, to be touched, to make sure that it's clear that, we're not, I know it came up a couple times, as you mentioned in our SPO discussions, in terms of what therapy programs we offer, and we don't offer counseling and therapy in that sort of mindset, correct?
So therapy, I often attribute to being an outside service. School-based counseling is the way I would refer to how we support kids in school and how to provide, to make sure that they're being successful in school. And therapy in school is not actually appropriate, because if the kid's coming out of math and is getting a very deep, therapeutic conversation, then it's very dysregulated. To send them back into math is unfair. And so it's finding this balance of being skill-based, solution-based, and so I think that when a kid reaches that point, like a tertiary type system has become critical, that there's a sense of an intensity to it that we refer out. And then we access some of those community resources that Allison discussed. But when it does impact school, because sometimes you have kids who are great in school, and at home they fall apart, and it's very challenging. So we do everything we can to support families as well, to connect them with resources, especially if it's not something that we really see in school. And so, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. Any other questions? Before we move on? I have to say a huge thank you. This, I think, was my personal favorite presentation, even above audit for the year. I feel like I'm high yellow, and then my excitement for board meetings is high in general. But this was really lovely. So thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I want to thank Dave and Allison for putting together such a wonderful presentation.
Thank you for your
Very
help.
encouraging.
Thank you.
All right. That moves us on to our second discussion topic for the evening, which is the discussion of the new outdoor sign. Now, we brought,
I have something on my report that I'll just bring up, or a visual.
oh, great, okay. So this is where we're at currently with the sign. We've now also shared our guidelines,
Oh, branding guide.
the branding
Brand
guidelines.
Yes.
The branding guidelines with all the board members, which were developed a couple years ago. It was very expensive, but it's just needed. So this is where we're at, and we did have some questions. If anybody
wants to address specifically the difference in font and are the colors aligned with our brand guideline? And then we also were talking about the legal name for the district versus adding the Garrison Union Free School District. So the goal of tonight's conversation, we do want to get this sign made. So I'd like to come to a conclusion. I want to make sure everyone can share their thoughts and that we are attuned with the brand guidelines so that as we move forward, everything starts to really work with the brand and the guidelines. But we also want to make signs, so that's the goal thing. All right, who wants to jump in and share some thoughts? Anybody? Peter, go
I'll
for
share
it.
some thoughts that I've shared with
Yeah, please.
you all. It was really nice to see the brand guidelines, which I didn't really know we had. And so, I'm a believer and I'm the design community work, I think about this stuff a lot, like that if you have a brand, you should stick to it as best you can, because that is, you spent so much time thinking about what that brand means, right? I wasn't there, but I assume there was a lot of thought put into it. And I think it's nice looking, and I think it does reflect the school very well, the brand does. And so, the sign to me is like one of the most visible places other than maybe our website, and I think it'd be nice to get closer if we can. I know we're limited by what the vendor has in terms of fonts, but to me, in terms of just the font, especially, I think it's very important. We're not very close.
So, and the vendor has seen the left-hand font?
Yeah, I shared, what I can share is that the colors, they may not look it on that, but I gave them the hex number for all the colors. So the posts are navy, that sand color is our color, and the blues are our color. So the colors the hex colors are like, you just can't see it in the pictures. The issue with, as you see on the sign, is as close as they had to the Lexan, and the Lexan font is the one underneath the sign. We can go back and see if there's any way, shape, or form. So like if you go in Adobe, like Adobe doesn't have Lexan. Right? So like if they design this through Adobe, like I went into Adobe and I was like,
You can buy it.
maybe, and I can ask that. So, and I think the other question was, whether or not we want a monochrome, with the birds and the river and the mountains, or, that dark color is in our brand guide. So we'll do whatever the board wants to do, and if we can get him to do the Lexan font, then we'll be on point. We are 95% of the way to being on brand, and if we can get to 100, we can certainly see if there's any way, shape, or form we can use that font.
I personally think it'd be worth buying the font if it's not.
It's free. It's a free Google form.
But do they have to buy it in Adobe to use it, or?
Let me ask again.
I'm sure the vendor has dealt with these.
Yeah, and I can absolutely, and get back to the board as soon as possible with, I think the last decisions to make is, if we can get them to the Lexan font, that'd be great. And then what color you want the birds and the mountains and the river. And whether we do the dark, which is the brand guide below, is those colors right below.
Is that what those I'm sorry, is that on the sign, the blues are what's supposed to be on the sign, or are they
The sign right now has the tan color.
the tan color?
It's
So we're
monochrome.
talking, we would switch to the blue.
The blue,
Again, I think,
dark blue.
I think when you start to like unravel things in small ways, I think you then start to not care. And it just kind of metastasizes into like a morass of and you don't have a brand anymore. So I think we should use whatever's on the brand guidelines, because again, the work we put in to do it. And, I'd be willing right now, if it's just to move along faster, if they have Lexan and you can use the blue to just approve as a board to just move forward, as opposed to having another discussion.
Yeah.
But that's just my.
Monochrome and the full color logo, because both of those are in brand guidelines.
I think what I'm hearing is that we like the blue better than the monochrome. Is that what you're saying?
Monochrome I don't have the brand guidelines up, this is
Yeah.
from memory, so I may have this a little bit wrong, but monochrome, the name, like that is just a label for the blue and the gray.
Okay.
But then there's a full color logo, which is the one that you see on the website, the green with the green and No, that's this one.
Those are both there, aren't they now?
And then
on
the
this
one
display?
on the,
The tan that you see there, I didn't see in the brand guidelines as.
It's not the full color logo on the top, you tried to make it a little monochrome.
Gotcha.
The one that's in the brand guidelines, a little more colorful, pops a little more.
But the top is full.
Yeah, but we can switch it out for the dark one, that he has access to, because we have the JPEGs and all that, and he can just use that.
The
Yeah.
monochromatic is what you're thinking of in terms of when they make it, it's all kind of similar.
Right.
It's the
So we
monochromatic.
want that to pop a little bit more on the top so that
I
it,
think so, again.
Yeah.
And the one that you see, the tan is not part of the brand guidelines.
so we
But
then
the
want,
navy and gray
You
is.
want the one on the bottom, that,
so the button on the bottom to go up. There.
Yeah.
And then,
like sand.
like that.
But I think we should pay for it.
Yeah.
Or for it.
well, and especially
It
the
might not have to
history
be.
of that font, which is readability, right?
Yes.
School.
Which is why it was selected in the first place, like, because it is the most readable font.
Right, and probably because it was.
Do remember that.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, and we're good with Garrison, not the Garrison. Okay, everyone's happy? All right.
One last question, I assume, I mean, the spacing in the Lexington font up there looks a little different than the spacing, like in the newsletter, top of the newsletter, so I assume that in the brand guidelines, it also gets to things like character spacing, right, and proportions, and that would all be.
So if I remember correctly, it's supposed to be lined up so that Union Free School District fits under Garrison at all times, regardless, in the font. So I think, yes, it should say Garrison and then Union Free School District should fit under Garrison.
Yeah, I just typed, that's a text box that I just typed in so you can see the difference in the font, but it would be lined up like you see on your newsletter or on your letterhead. It would be Garrison, and the U would be aligned with the G, and the T and the end of district would be aligned with the N of Garrison.
This is bringing back a lot of conversations where I listen to people talk about the line of G and E. Yes, I do.
So maybe.
We'll get it lined up.
Yeah, so maybe to see one quick final pass.
Yes.
So that- and then,
I think
but we can sign off there.
we're comfortable, I think we all have, we can bring this forward to send it in, the update, if no one has objections, we're good to go then. It's the order, so.
Or even before that, if you want to move it. Like, let's-
All right, any other questions? Thank you very much. Next up, we have a discussion of the Westchester Putnam School Board Association budget vote, board of directors slate for 25-26. I'm going to read the recommended action. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby passed its vote for the Westchester Putnam School Board Association slate of officers, directors, and ratification of the WPSBA budget for the 25-26 year as presented. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts on this? I do sit on this board, so I was not on the nominating committee this year, but it is basically whoever's willing to donate their time to additional school board-like meetings. It's a fun group of really committed people. So what's nice is they always seek diversity. So it's not just all Westchester, it's not all Putnam, but it's various districts with all different sizes. Like our needs are very different from say White Plains. But it's lovely to hear from everybody. So if there's no other questions or thoughts, I'm gonna go ahead and move to a vote. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Abstentions. Thank you. All right, that brings us to public comment. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns in accordance with policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District. Any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet. Commenters will be invited to the podium to address the board. They signed up. I'm gonna go ahead and close public comment then. We will have another session later. Moving on to accept the minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the minutes of the regular business meeting of April 22nd, 2025 as presented. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. Do we have any questions on the minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Moving on to CSE CPSE recommendation. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District approve the Committee on Special Education and Committee on Preschool Special Education recommendations and student placements. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. That brings us to the personnel consent agenda. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby approve the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. Do you have any questions on the only one item tonight, contract extension? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Brings me to the second public comment this evening. I'm not going to read my paragraph again, and as we still do not have members of the public, I'm going to go ahead and close the second public comment section. That brings me at 8:08 to board member comment and other discussions. So please take your time, no rush. Jocelyn?
Thank you to teachers, to Nurse Wilson, and to Ms. It's unfortunate, but no.
Eric?
Ditto.
Okay. Jim?
Ditto, plus congratulations to Ms. Emmett for her contract.
Dan? Peter?
No comment.
No problem.
I have no further comment this evening. That brings us to executive session. Be resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of reviewing legal counsel and discussing the employment history of a particular person. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. We will adjourn executive session without any further action being taken. Thank you.